Hi, this is Nick Matthias, principal of the Cleveland Repertory video game cinematic suburban, um, orchestras here. And I wanted to talk about what sets, one thing that sets good players away from great players and the people who win the jobs. And it's very overlooked. It's something you don't think about very often. Maybe you do, but players usually don't. And it catches them off guard when they lose spots because they don't think about it. And it's nothing that, it's nothing otherworldly or outlandish. It's something quite simple. In fact, it's so simple that it's very broad. It's so easy and so abundant that it's extremely broad and oftentimes overwhelms players when it comes to knowing this on a piece-by-piece, composer-by-composer basis. And that is context. And let me explain. So, you have the people who know the instrument, they can play the instrument super well. And pretty much in the modern day and age, it's 2025 right now. That's a lot of people. You go to East Coast and you're fighting tooth and nail for a community orchestra job. And that's just how it is. But how do you win those jobs? Give me a second, I had to find something. It's quite simple. First of all, be a good player. You have to, there are the 3 T's that I've learned from the tuba player of the Akron Symphony, and of course other people have said this before. The 3 T's are play in time, play in tune, and play in tone. Tone refers to the, being in tune with the orchestra, being in tune with the key, overall intonation. I was trying to look for an excerpt. There it is. And there are a few excerpts. Obviously you can do this for all excerpts. I'm digging through this thing like I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, but in reality, every excerpt you can do this for them. But there are certain key excerpts you need to think about. So, as a bass trombone player, any player really, a musician, having your music in context is really important, because otherwise you'll play for them a panel of people, a graduate panel, a professor, the people behind the curtain, who knows? And they'll be like, he's a really good player. They're a really good player, she, whoever you are. But this doesn't sound like my part can overlap this part or play over. It doesn't sound like it's in context. And so your number will not be called for the next round. Whoops. However, one thing you can do, once you get to a certain level of musicianship, to be professional, that's where I'm at, that's where other, really high achieving students and young professional and freelancers are at. I freelance a lot. There are other people in the area who freelance a lot. And there are a lot of other young collegiate people who are professional level or who are ready to take that next step. And oftentimes they can't because, 1, there's politics behind music. And 2, you get things like this. If you don't know what this is Strauss's Salome. And in this excerpt, you'll get someone that goes, ba, dee, dee, dum, da, dum, dee, dum, ba, ba, bum, 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 and they'll play through it in the way they think Strauss writes, because they've heard, his other excerpts. Oh, this has to be bouncy, right? These notes. Oh, ba, ba, bum, bum, bum. No, they're not. This is John the Baptist's theme, and the reason it's going downwards, it's inverted camera angle. The reason it's going downwards, if you've ever heard this or watched it, it's amazing. I've played in the pit for this once, and it's really an interesting experience. But it usually goes up. He's going up to heaven. Woo, he's a good guy. This is basically a scene where Salome calls him up from his dungeon, prison, whatever, and she tries to force herself on him, saying, all this stuff like, I want to kiss you, I want to do this, I want to do that. And he is basically saying, no, never. And right before this theme plays, right about here in these 2 measures of rest, he goes, you are cursed. And she says, down with you, you're going to be sentenced to death. So this theme no longer goes up, it goes down, because he's going down and sentenced to die. Decapitation. And so you need to know this. Why? Because it's a heavier theme than, first of all, than its earlier repetitions in the same piece. And second of all, it's heavier than most of his writing. You have to think about these 16th note pickups right here. Oh God, it's so hard to see. These 16th note pickups right around here are the heaviest 16th note pickups you will ever play. It goes da dee da dum dee da bum 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 dee dee da. And a lot of people mess that up. It's, of course, this isn't a very common excerpt. If you audition to be in an opera, you may run into it, and you're going to play it. However, it's very important to know this. On a more orchestral level, you have bass trombone players. It's my favorite excerpt. It's my signature excerpt, but most trombone players, bass trombone players, they hate this excerpt. Fountains of Rome. Now, the funny thing about this piece is everyone just plays through it, and they know how it sounds, they know the part, but do they know where they should come out? Boom, boom, dee dum da dum dee dum. Cool, you play that. Dee dum, boom, boom, dee dum. You play that right. You need to come out here. Boom, boom, ba bum, bum, boom. Bum 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 ba dum bum ba dee da dee da da dee dun da da dee da dee da dee da 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 da. There are some things where you are playing this melody and then you're interchanging with the strings around you. If you know the string parts, it goes da 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 da. It's like triplets and sixteenths everywhere. Oh wait. And 8th and 16ths everywhere. But if you look at your part, wait, you have that here, you have that here, you have that here. So where do you come out? You come out basically everywhere else. You need to know where you come out as a group, and you're playing this theme, or you're playing triumphantly, like there's a triumphant part. Bum 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 bum. And that needs to come out. But when you get past the triplets, it's really all about technique. So when you get, a panel of people, they'll listen to this, and there's like 85% of people will just blast through this. Don't do that. This piece is really not about being loud. This whole part is not about being loud. I don't care what it says. It says triple forte. Don't play that. Horrible, horrible, horrible mentality to go into this piece with, because first of all, look at all this playing. If you play forte, triple forte, fortissimo, whatever, the whole time you are never going to make it through this piece. It will drag and you will sound like a chainsaw, which, like in some pieces, it's awesome, but in this one, it's not. This is Italian writing. You have to be very light and very centered. Know when to come out. And panels will keep track of that. You'll get a violin player saying, oh, I have that same like little melodic motion, dun 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 dun, and he didn't play it like I play it there. How am I going to fit in with that? Or a trumpet player, or a horn player, or whoever is behind the curtain, they're going to hear that and say, it doesn't really line up. So, yeah. An excerpt like that. Another excerpt that's a bit easier to talk about is Beethoven. Beethoven 9. I'm currently playing this at Severance Hall, actually in 3 days. But you need to know what's happening before a little bit. But what's happening during is a bit deceiving. You haven't marked fortissimo. First of all, time period playing. Trombone fortissimo back then is way different than trombone fortissimo now. Second of all, you have all these really terrace dynamics coming out, like sforzando, sforzando, forzando. When you're already marked fortissimo or a forte, why is that? Okay, let's talk about it. First of all, you're with the tenors and basses, and your job is not to play loud. I mean, like, it says fortissimo, play mezzo forte. And it depends, honestly, on the choir, the size, and the power of the singing that they're able to provide you with. First of all, it's a lot more anchored. Dee, da, 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 dee, da, da. Notice how I go, dee, da. Why is that? It's forzando, forte. And it's written that way because you have to bring that out. Think of that, when he writes that, almost like an accent, but not as powerful. It's more like dee, da, and then you go back to normal. And of course you have this in some places where the choir doesn't sing, and then they come in a beat later, or you have it, and second has it, and first has it, or whatever. It changes. The context could be bell tones, it could be bum, bum, or it could be D with the choir, da, 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 D, It really depends on what the conductor wants, the choir is giving you to work with. But it's very important not to play this super loud. And you need to play this at a really relaxed 72. Half note equals 72. And that's just a generalization. Some people fly through this, most people do not. You will be sitting on this line for about maybe a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. It really takes a while. And to know your part, to know the tuning of your part, takes a lot. This is one of those pieces that they'll get you on if you don't know. And of course, sometimes it sounds great and the panel looks at you and they're like, it didn't sound like it was in context. Whoops, it's okay. This is one of those pieces that it's really hard to win. It's hard to win people over with, but when you play it right and you play for the right people who play it the same way that you are playing it or have played it that way, or the conductor's wanting it that way, it can really resonate. Same thing with Wagner. You have to know what's going on in those parts. One that's not as common, but is my favorite, is the Miraculous Mandarin. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. The busy traffic. People blast through this, don't blast through it. It's mezzo forte. It's a solo, but you are not the main idea. You know what I mean? You're something off in the distance, and then you get louder, and then you get louder, and then you cut out, and then you come back. It's very important to know your styles. Just like this Bernstein West Side Story. Bum, 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 ba-da-dee-da. If you want a master class on how to play notes accented, this is the kind of writing you want. Bum 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 bum. Dun 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 dun. You know, you get these kinds of notes, and that's what they're looking for. I ran into this once. It's number 12 in the West Australian Symphony Orchestra edition. And you gotta know your accents. Everyone knows West Side Story, everyone knows Mamba. But do you really know it? You know what I mean? Another one, and this is also in the West Australian that I came across. I think it was on the second or third, probably the third round, called this piece out. Motorcycle, Scherzo for Motorcycle and Orchestra. And this is gonna sound like a silly question, but when I was at Boston University, I was asked by Toby Oft, which one are you, the motorcycle or the orchestra? Maybe it's a joke, maybe it's not, but it's important to know that you are the motorcycle in this excerpt. And it's also important to know that you are not alone. Trumpets playing. You know, it's very important to know you're with the other trombones, and there are some places you can come out like, right, and then you fade away and you have to go into this little playful area. You get to come out here, but outside of that, this forte is really more of a mezzo forte. And whenever he has these, and he has repeating, like, you know, crescendo markings everywhere, it's important to know that, like, you back off a little bit before that, and then you go right back into the forte. You're the motorcycle, and it's important to replicate the idea that you are this motorcycle that is very nimbly and very quickly moving, but carefully. And then, of course, you have the storm. Look, there's not much to this one. It's not as hard as many people make it out to be, but it's not that easy. It's very easy to make mistakes. Just know it doesn't go as fast. And when I'm working on this piece, you know, you usually want to have the 16th notes subdivided all the time, and really, really focus in on those anchor notes. But outside of that, it's the context of the piece, the conductor, who you're playing for, what's happening in this scene, and how can you capture that? Because everyone's a good player. Let's face it, we are in a saturated market. Everyone's a good player. What makes you special? This is one thing that's going to make you special. Cool.